Welcome back to another Explainer, everyone. Today we're diving headfirst into one of the most vivid, dramatic, and honestly intensely mysterious passages of ancient literature ever recorded. We're exploring a profound vision of apocalyptic imagery straight from the book of Revelation. Picture this dramatic scene with me. There's this sacred, deeply mysterious scroll, secured tight with seals, and it's being opened, one by a figure known as the Lamb. With the breaking of each and every seal, a massive cosmic event is unleashed upon the world. So we're going to unpack the exact text of the first four seals, which you might know from popular culture as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. We're going to look at exactly what the text actually says, how it structures its warnings, and the truly remarkable way this imagery just builds and builds in intensity.
I mean, the text doesn't just quietly start, it practically shakes the reader. The narrator tells us, "I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, 'Come and see.'" That sensory detail right there, the thunder, is just an incredible narrative hook. It demands your attention. It's loud, it's earth-shattering, and it serves as this powerful, irresistible invitation that pulls us directly into the vision. You aren't just reading a description here, you are literally being commanded by a thundering voice to come and see right alongside the narrator. Section 1. Opening the first seal. Behold, a white horse.
That thundering command actually sets up a rhythm for the whole narrative we're about to explore. Okay, let's break this down. Let's look at the specific attributes given to this very first rider. The text tells us he sat upon a white horse, but pay really close attention to his equipment and his overall purpose. He held a bow, which is a weapon of distance and striking power, right? He was given a crown, symbolizing absolute authority and rulership. And his ultimate purpose is stated with this intense, repetitive focus. He went forth conquering and to conquer. So this is definitely not a passive figure. This first seal unleashes an entity fully equipped, authorized, and singularly focused entirely on conquest and domination.
Section 2. The red horse appears, and the second seal is opened.
The first seal definitely sets the stage, but man, the vision escalates rapidly. The Lamb opens the second seal, and the voice of a second beast calls out with that exact same thundering command, "Come and see." Out comes another horse, and this one is red. The text explicitly tells us that power was given to him that sat thereon to do something truly terrifying, to take peace from the earth. Just pause for a second and think about the immense scope of that phrase. The rider isn't just bringing an invading army. This rider is granted a specific, supernatural power to completely remove the very concept of peace from the entire earth, with the direct, chaotic result that people should kill one another. It's a vision of total social collapse and internal violence.
And this brilliantly illustrates the escalation happening in the text. Look at the specific weapon mentioned for this rider. Unlike the first rider who carried a bow, a weapon of calculated distant conquest, there was given unto the second rider a great sword. This represents up-close, brutal, widespread conflict. The imagery totally shifts here, from structured, organized conquest to visceral, terrifying, person-to-person violence.
Section 3. Balances and black horses, as the third seal brings famine.
So the Lamb opens the third seal. The third beast commands us to look, and a black horse emerges. Now this rider brings a completely different kind of devastation. The text tells us this rider holds a pair of balances in his hand. And then a voice from the midst of the four beasts declares these strict, unforgiving economic limits. The voice calls out, "A measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny." We are moving away from the loud violence of the sword to the slow, creeping terror of severe scarcity and famine.
Let's focus on the exact math of this for a moment, specifically the number 3. 3 measures of barley for a penny. The text is literally giving us the exact rationing of basic daily sustenance. A measure of wheat or 3 measures of cheaper, much less desirable barley, all meticulously weighed out and priced. It paints a painfully vivid picture of a world where everyday food is strictly rationed, where just waking up and surviving becomes a grueling, daily mathematical equation of cost versus calories.
But hang on, notice the second half of that voice's command. Right after detailing the desperate rationing of wheat and barley, the voice adds, "And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Well, that's a really specific, almost curious detail, isn't it? In the absolute midst of this devastating scarcity of basic bread, these specific items, oil and wine, are explicitly protected from the ruin. It adds this fascinating layer of complexity to the disaster, right? It's a selective famine that spares certain resources while strictly limiting the absolute essentials.
Section 4. Death on a pale horse. The fourth seal is broken. The sequence just continues its relentless march.
The fourth beast says, "Come and see," and a pale horse appears. And you really have to note the distinct shift here. All the previous riders were described by their attributes, their horse colors, their weapons, or their tools, but this rider, this one is given a literal name. The text says, his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. It's an incredibly stark, chilling image. Death is leading the charge, and hell is right there trailing close behind, a 1-2 punch of absolute finality.
So the crucial point we need to understand is the sheer, terrifying scope of this power. The text is mathematically precise about the devastation. It tells us that power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth. 1 complete quarter of the entire world falls under their domain. That is a staggering scale of impact when you really think about it.
And how exactly do they exercise this power over that fourth part of the earth? Well, the text densely lays out a highly specific, multi-pronged devastation. It lists exactly 4 methods of destruction granted to death and hell: to kill with sword, to kill with hunger, to kill with death itself, and finally, to kill with the beasts of the earth. It essentially represents a total encompassing of all the previous terrors, war, famine, and mortality, now amplified and joined by the very forces of nature turning violently against humanity.
Section 5. The Final Toll, summarizing the escalation.
The real genius of this ancient text lies in exactly how methodically it scales disaster. Let's contrast the start of the sequence with its catastrophic end. The first seal brings a white horse, a bow, a crown, and a figure setting out purely to conquer. It's almost orderly. But by the time we reach the fourth seal, all that order is completely gone. We have a pale horse named Death with hell following, bringing a chaotic, multi-layered destruction to a massive portion of the earth. The text is essentially taken us on a rapid, terrifying journey from human ambition and warfare to absolute apocalyptic ruin.
When we step back and view this progression structurally, you can clearly trace the meticulous scaling of devastation, seal by seal. The white horse brings the bow to conquer. The red horse brings the great sword to take peace. The black horse brings the balances to enforce scarcity. And finally, the pale horse brings death itself, with a terrifying mandate to kill a fourth of the earth. Every single time a seal breaks open, a heavier, more encompassing layer of suffering drops than the last, systematically dismantling the very foundations of a functioning world. Which leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to end on today. If just these first 4 seals unleash this staggering amount of global devastation, conquest, war, famine, and death, what in the world happens when the remaining seals on that scroll are finally opened? This ancient text is an absolute masterclass in building tension and mystery, and I really hope this breakdown has made its dramatic structure a bit clearer for you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, everyone. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep looking closely at the details. See you next time.